Hello, everyone. I'm Vincent Piconich, and I'm here with Noor Tagouri.
Hi, everyone.
And she already did her talk. So I have to ask you a few questions because I have to do an interview here. I want to ask you, where does this passion come from? Like what you do today? Like where does this moment of I wanted to do this, like where you are now, came from?
So, I would say my passion stems from my personal experiences and the people that I surround myself. By personal experiences, I would say that um, it took a lot for me to kind of find myself and learn to love myself and understand myself and be my most authentic version of myself. And from there, I kind of was started this fire inside of me that kind of made me really want to do what I love unapologetically and maintain my own identity. And so it kind of just grew. And the more I surrounded myself with people who were like-minded, the more the passion grew. And the more that I saw that things needed to be done in this field, the more I was like, okay, I'm going to make things happen. And it just went from there.
Wow, that's actually it's very impressive because today we don't really see that. We don't see people, at least people in our generation, as I like to say, take this big stride into it. A lot of them will take it and then fall short and go into something new, which is completely fine. But what you did is really strong, like how you went fully through it and did not try to go off track.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I think it's kind of rare for somebody to know what they want to be when they're 8 years old and kind of stick through it. But there's definitely been some changes along the way. Like, obviously, you have this image in your head of, who you want to become, and then life happens and it changes, but I think for the better. And I think the more you find yourself and the more you figure out what you want to do, the more growth there is and possibility.
Okay. One other question for you. Hold on, my phone. Your name means light, correct? In
Yes,
Arabic?
in Arabic, Noor al-Huda. So my middle name is al-Huda, so it means the guiding light.
Okay. So that actually adds on to this question very well. Your name means light, and understanding what you do now, like how you give this empowerment to people and how you do motivational speaking. Do you think this was kind of set from the start? Like this was kind of your name was meant to throw you into this field?
So I love that question just because my name is something that I hold so close to me. I had an identity crisis, so I grew up in a very white town. There was no one who looked like me. There wasn't even anyone who had dark hair around me. That's how, that's how much I stood out. And I remember when I was younger, I was very ashamed of my name. I wish I had a name that was like Jessica or like Hannah or like Sarah or whatever, something very simple for me. And the more I grew to find myself, the more I learned to love my name. And I understood that I wanted to be that light, for other people, and that I wanted to inspire people to let their inner lights shine and to enlighten people on different stories and themselves. And it kind of came full circle. So now whenever I meet people, I always ask them, oh, well, what does your name mean? Or who are you named after? And how does that apply to you? If I were to have kids one day, I'd want to name my kid something that I'd want them to embody in their own character, because I think that your name really is a part of your character. And, that it's so important to stay in tune with that. So for me, I now have learned to absolutely love my name. I'd never change it for anything. But it really did kind of define my purpose and message to me.
That's very fantastic because most people, even including myself, we don't accept who we are, and what you've done is accept it. And you, instead of accepting it and moving on with life, you accepted it and turned it for the better. You turned this inward hate, right? Towards your name, towards who you were, and then you exported it out of you into this grand new persona that is great.
I don't even think it's a new persona. I think it's finally discovering who you are and learning to love it. We have these societal standards that are set that we try so hard to be. And for me, it's why are you guys setting a limit for yourself where you can clearly break all boundaries and norms? Who says you have to be that way? Who says you have to look a certain way and you have to smile a certain way and you have to dress a certain way and you have to act a certain way? When did we ever allow people to set those rules for us? And the second I realized I don't have to listen to those standards, and actually acted upon it, and I was I'm good, I'm chilling, I can be myself. The more I started to do it, the more I felt more comfortable, and it physically felt like these shackles on my ankles and my arms were they fell, and nobody was going to stop me. And at that point, it's terrifying because it's there are so many possibilities. Where am I going? Where am I going? But because you've taken that step forward, you're attracting something in the universe that like brings forth opportunity and positivity to you and allows you to literally soar. And as cliche as this sounds, once you get to that point, absolutely anything is possible. It's crazy how many things have happened in my life where like my brain would have never been able to fathom the possibility of this, and I still have to pinch myself and be like, how did this happen? And it truly came from me unapologetically being myself and saying, I don't care anymore. Like, I don't care what people think of me. I don't care what society says I have to be or how it says I have to dress. Like, I will do whatever I want that feels right for me. That's my message, my passion, and like my personal legend, and I'm going to live it, and it's going to be great.
That's absolutely fantastic. I'm not gonna lie to you on that, because not everyone has that ability in them, and
it's definitely a process. I don't think it comes easy, and I think that because of the society that we live in, it makes it a million times harder. But it's a process, and it starts with yourself and saying, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be this person anymore, and I'm going to start finding myself. And in my talk, you hear about like how when did that start for me and what that took. And it wasn't easy, but I promise once you get to that point, it's the most magical thing you could ever imagine.
Again, I'm so astonished that you are at that point, and that's something for like someone like me who's very spiritual, who wants to reach that point, and how some people still want to be that. They want to be themselves. They want to be this authentic version of themselves, but something constrains them, either it be society or whatever form of society that does hold them back. And speaking of it, what is your view on being labeled in today's society? Like, how some people will label themselves today, like, I am demi-queer, or I am this. And what is your opinion on that? I'm just very curious.
I think we label ourselves, or society labels each other, because it makes things easier to put people in categories. I don't think it's the most right thing, but I think it makes people comfortable. Because we're very scared of what we don't know. And so if we can label somebody as something that we think we know, then it makes it easier for us to like see them as a person and take on their perspective, because it's like, okay, well, they must think this or they must whatever. But the more you start to like look at people with absolutely no judgment or label, you'll start to see a side of them that you wouldn't have if you had put that label on them. And you kind of remove the filter that would otherwise be there. And so for you to I think it takes a conscious effort for us not to label people, but it's such a natural thing to us because that's what our society does. And it's a process. Like, you have to break that mold, and you have to see past that, because if people were going to see me just as a straight up label, which a lot of people do, whether it's Muslim or hijabi or woman, whatever it is, they set like this list with that. And because I know that happens, I do everything I can to be myself and break that. So yesterday I was in Montreal for a talk, and literally after the talk, so many people just came up to me. They were like, you're nothing like I thought. Like, you broke like whatever image I had of you. And I'm like, yeah. Because when you put a label on a person, or when you see them as something, you assume they're X, Y, and Z. But like, when you actually hear them, or like feel their energy, or get to know them as a person, you'll realize that they're much more than just that, and you can see beyond it, and you'll allow yourself to connect with that person. And so I think it's a risk to not label people, but it's also one worth taking, because not only does it do more for you and your experience with your relationship with them, whether it's 1 minute long or 1 year or a lifetime long, but it makes that difference, because not only will you do it for them, but it also in turn makes you reflect on yourself and be like, okay, well, how am I breaking whatever label people are seeing me as, or what do I want to be known as or seen as?
Again, you have done something that's very incredible. At least I keep saying that because it is something incredible in my eyes, because no one is able to understand that yet. At least from how I've seen people, like, when you have to reach that level of understanding with someone, that's a higher form of anything. Like, people are not there yet to want to understand the person. They want to just one famous person said, and I cannot remember his name because I'm trying to go with self-memory. He said, people listen to, or he or she people listen not to understand, but to reply.
Yep.
And what I see you do, you don't want that. You want the understanding, and that's very, very empowering to anyone.
Yeah, I think that if it comes to somebody who's like me, who you are listening just to, if you're trying to understand, like I can't afford to listen to someone just to reply, because my job is to have someone share their personal story anyway. As a journalist, like that's what you're supposed to be doing. And so for me to expect otherwise from other people, like I need to understand that whatever I have to say, like I'm hoping that people are taking it in and actually listening. But it's so hard. Sometimes it is hard to not just reply, because you always have something to say and you want to get your point across, but that's not how that understanding happens, especially when you're in something like a debate, or like you don't agree with somebody's thought process, or they have this assumption about you. You really have to understand where they're coming from in order for you to have a productive conversation. Otherwise, you're just talking for the sake of talking.
Yeah, you're right on that one, actually. I'm sorry, I'm very speechless because it's very, I don't know, it's very shocking to meet someone like you who has this great potential in them to keep doing what they're doing, to reach this point of, like, again, as I've said, understanding, and it's very nice to see someone like you to do that, and it's very inspiring to someone like me to want to be further into that field, be more open-minded, less ignorant, as our culture likes to portray us as Americans, by the way, not just us as people. But I love how you are talking about that. What's last thing before I let you go? What is the biggest piece of advice you can give anyone out there on their own personal rebellion?
Your personal rebellion stems from being your most authentic self. And finding your most authentic self truly comes from being outside of your comfort zone. So if you're in a place where you're comfortable, where you feel okay 100%, then you're not where you need to be. Everything you want is just outside of your comfort zone. And understanding that means that you need to go after what it is, whatever it is that ignites fire in you. And through that process, understand that absolutely no one owes you anything. They don't. So when you're going after an opportunity or a job, or you want to meet with somebody, or you want some advice and they're not getting back to you, they don't owe you that response. You stay persistent and you stay polite, and if nothing happens, you keep moving and you keep moving, because it will come. Those opportunities will come, and it'll look like work. Like opportunity is dressed in overalls and looks like work. And for you to continue to seize those opportunities while maintaining your most authentic self, absolutely anything is possible. And always visualize what it is that you want. And if a lot of college students are listening to this, be careful who you choose to spend your time with, because the moment things started working out for me for the better was the moment that I started cutting people out that I knew were poison or toxic for me. And that's really hard when you're in college, or when you're in high school, or when you're even throughout your life, because you have these friends for so long, but the second that you feel like someone isn't happy for you or doesn't want what's best for you, don't deal with it. And it's okay. And again, failure is okay too. Like falling down again and again and getting bruised and scratched up is totally okay. It's way better than being stagnant, because the only place you can go now is up. And yeah, remember that. I think the last piece of advice would also be just remember that you're not living for yourself only. That you're living for everyone who came before you, who made it easier for you, and everyone who's coming after you and expecting you to make it easier for them. And so the second you feel like giving up, don't be selfish and do it. Make sure you keep going, because you are responsible for people who are going to come after you, and you owe it to the people who came before you.